Dear friends, welcome to the next session for software engineering and designing concepts. In today's session, we will be doing the data flow diagram, which is a functional oriented approach of the design methodology. So let us get started. So data flow diagram or DFD provides the functional overview of a system, and the graphical representation easily overcomes any gap between the user and system analyst and the analyst and system designer in understanding a system. So any confusion related to any of the stakeholders can be identified well in SRS, and this SRS can be immediately converted into a DFD, which will display all the functionalities along with the input and the output. DFD shows the external entities from which the data flows into the process, and also the other flows of the flows of data within the system. It includes transformation of data flow by the process and the data stores to read or write the data. So DFD basically involves external entities, data flows, as well as processes. Processes pertains to the functionalities, and also the data stores where we can store the data. So basically, to represent this data flow diagram, we need certain symbols, and these symbols can be represented using certain geometrical representation. The first one is the external entity, the second is the data flow arrow, the third is the output, the fourth is the process, and the fifth one is the data store or data sink. Now let us look at all the symbols in detail. So basically, the process is represented using a circle, and it is also known as a bubble or a transform. The name of the process is written into the circle, which is very important, because without the name the process will not stand correct. The name of the process is usually given in such a way that it represents the functionality of the process. More detailed functionalities can be shown in the next level if it is required. Usually it is better to keep the number of processes less than 7. If we see that the number of processes becomes more than 7, we should immediately combine some of the processes to a single one to reduce the number of processes and further decompose it in the next level. Having processes more than 7 in a particular diagram might lead to certain confusions in the entire figure or entire DFD. External entity, as already mentioned, they are represented in a rectangle, and its unique characteristic is that they appear only in the context diagram, which is the first level of the DFD. This context diagram is also known as level 0 diagram. External entity can be found nowhere in the other DFD representations. So external entities are represented by a rectangle, and the name of the external entity is written into the shape. These send data to be processed and again receive the processed data. So next is the data store. They are represented by a left-right open rectangle or parallel lines. Name of the data store is written in between two horizontal lines of the open rectangle. Data stores are used as repositories from which the data can be flown in or flown out to or from a process. So basically these data stores are logical file systems like a database or a file where you can store your information, and it will also represent what from where the data has been stored and to which other process the data would be sent out. The next important symbol is the data flow, which is basically an arrow or a directed edge between two components of the data flow diagram. And the data flow from external entity to process, data store to process, in between two processes, or vice versa. So basically it's an arrow which will show the data flow from different positions to different locations. So next we will talk about synchronous operations. So this is an example which is taken from the software engineering by Professor Rajiv Mall, available in NPTEL. So if two bubbles are directly connected by a data flow arrow, they are known as synchronous operations. So if you look into this diagram, the data items are being sent to the read numbers process, that is 0.1, and again these numbers after being read is sent to the validate numbers process, and after it has been validated it will be displayed as output. Now the important parameter here is that all the processes, they have their process names associated with it as well as the process numbers. So if two processes are connected to each other via a data flow arrow, then we call them to be a synchronous operations. Asynchronous, on the other hand, involves a data store or sink to connect two different processes. That means whatever data is being fed to the process 0.1 is basically stored in a data store or sink after being read, and the data is being pulled out from the store or sink by the validate numbers process, and the numbers are validated. So this is the difference between the synchronous and the asynchronous operation, where in asynchronous operation two bubbles are connected via a data store, and in synchronous operation there is no existence of data store between two bubbles. Now we will talk about the context diagram. Context diagram is the first level of the hierarchy in a DFD. It is also known as zero level DFD. So basically in context diagram we have to identify the input data of the system, the output generated by the system, and the entities external to the system. It also captures interaction of external entities with the system and the data flow occurring between system and external entities. So we have to understand that whatever it is being represented in a context level diagram, it is like a black box view of the system where the external entity or the user is represented, and also the input and output which is generated by the processes is represented. The context level diagram is also called the level 0 diagram because it is the first level of hierarchy of the entire system. It establishes context of the system, that is represents data stores and data sinks. This is very important from the concept of the entire DFD in detail, because without the context diagram it is next to impossible to further move ahead with a detailed representation of the DFD. So the parent or the root of the DFD lies in the context level or level 0 diagram. Next we will talk about level 1 diagram. Here we will be breaking down the initial bubble or the initial process in the context level diagram into sub functions or sub bubbles or sub transforms. So here also we have to represent each high level function as a bubble. That means we have to identify each of the functions which can be there in that particular system as a bubble and represent them in a circle. Then we have to represent the data input to every high level function or the bubble. Again, the data output from every high level function or the bubble needs to be identified. So similarly we have to if we need to further decompose these bubbles, we shall have to identify the sub functions of the function, the data input to each of the sub function, and the data output from each of the sub functions or each of the high level functions. So likewise we have to go on breaking down each of the bubbles or each of the processes until they stop somewhere. Now where do we stop breaking down or decomposing these bubbles? Until and unless these bubbles can be or processes can be represented using a set of instructions or an algorithm. So talking about decomposition, It is also known as factoring or exploding, and we should be factoring or exploding a process between 3 to 7 bubbles. So if there are very less bubbles, it will include the problem of redundancy, because it might be so that we might not be show the might not be able to show the details of that particular process and end up in showing a redundant factor which will be resembling the parent process. If there are, however, if there are more than 7 bubbles, then also it will be difficult for the DFD to understand, because it will give a very clumsy look and understanding will be difficult. So as already mentioned, decomposition of the bubbles or processes should be carried out until and unless that particular process can be represented using a simple algorithm or a set of instructions. Now when I'm talking about decomposition, it essentially means that I'm breaking down a bigger operation into smaller and sub-smaller functions. So now let us look into an example which is being taken from Software Engineering by Professor Rajiv Mall, available in NPTEL, and it is known as the RMS calculating software. So RMS essentially stands for root mean square calculating software of 3 integers. So here the input data to the system is 3 integers, and the result is basically the root mean square of this 3 integers. So let us consider A, B and C as 3 integers, and we have to find the root mean square of these 3 integers. Now this RMS follows 3 different steps. The first step is finding out the square of each of the numbers. So the first step is to find out the square of each of the numbers. The second step will be to find out the mean of the squares of these numbers. So the mean can be formed by a square plus b square plus c square divided by 3. And finally, in the third step, we need to find out the root. So this is the root mean square of A, B and C. So it involves 3 steps to compute the RMS of 3 integers. So talking about the first one, which is the context level diagram, it will show the external entity, which is the user. The user sends the data item to the process, which is compute RMS. Its name is given, the process number is given, and after computing the RMS, the result is again displayed to the user. So this is a bird's eye view or the black box view of the entire system with just one single process involved, which is compute RMS. So on moving ahead to level 1 DFD, this compute RMS will be again shown in detail, where we have to initially read the numbers and validate the numbers before we can compute the RMS. So let us have a look at level 1 DFD. So level 1 DFD essentially involves reading of the numbers, validating the numbers. If it is correct, it will compute the RMS of the 3 numbers, and if it is wrong, that means if the numbers are not validated, then it will display an error. So here the external entity is not shown. External entity is shown only in the context level diagram. However, the data from the external entity is shown, and this data item goes to the read numbers or 0.1 process. Once the numbers are read, these numbers are sent for validation, because we were talking about integers. So if they are integers, there is a need to validate these numbers, and once they are validated, if it is correct, if the numbers are correct, it will go to the compute RMS process, and the result is the RMS of the 3 numbers, and it is displayed using the display process. The result can also be stored in a particular output file, or it can directly be sent to the user. So if it is stored in output file, you have to represent using the output symbol. Now if the numbers are not validated, then it will show an error, and this showing, basically this is displaying the error, and it will use up the process display. Now if you carefully look into each of the processes, the number 0.1, 0 pertains to the context level diagram process number, and 1 is basically a sub function of the 0 process. Again 0.2 is basically 0 stands for context level diagram, and 2 is the sub function or the high level function of the entire system. Similarly 0.3 and 0.4 means the same. Now in the next level, we will be basically breaking down this compute RMS process into its smaller sub functions. That means 0.3 would be broken down into the 3 different steps: computing of squares, computing of mean, and then finding out the root of the result is basically done in the next level DFD. So when we have a look at this, this is the level 2 DFD, and we will be breaking down 0.3 process number into 1, 2 and 3 respectively. So once the numbers are valid, so if you look at the previous diagram, we will be basically taking this point, we will be basically taking this point as the input to the process. So when we look at this, so the numbers after they are validated becomes valid numbers, and they will be sent to the first step, which is calculating the squared sum. So once the calculating of the squared sum is done, the squared sum is then sent to the next step, which is calculating the mean of the squared sum. So once calculation is done, the mean square is then sent to the last step, which is finding out the root of the 3 numbers. So once they are done, it will simply go to the display process, which is not shown here because we are simply breaking down 0.3 process, and 0.4 in our previous diagram, as you can see, is a separate process. So we will not be associating 0.4 in this particular diagram, but we will essentially break down 0.3 into all its sub functions. The last and the final level is breaking down of the 0.3.1 into its subsequent steps, because again finding out the squared sum can also be broken down into different steps. So once you feed the numbers a, b and c into, once the numbers a, b and c are validated, they are basically fed into 3 separate processes, which will be finding out the square of this numbers. So once the square numbers are squared, it becomes ASQ, BSQ and CSQ, and this ASQ, BSQ and CSQ basically goes to the next process, which is finding out the squared sum of all these 3 numbers, and then the result goes to the next process. The next process is essentially finding out the mean of these 3 numbers. So if you look at the previous diagram, it is basically ending in this point, ending is in this particular point. So we broke or we decompose squared sum, calculation of squared sum process into its further sub functions or sub modules, which is 0.3.1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and finally we display the result. So this is how we go on decomposing each of the processes. We have to be very careful in decomposing these processes because we have to associate the process numbers along with them or along with whichever process we are trying to decompose. So this is all about your RMS calculating software. Similarly, we can take various other examples and find out all the high level functions associated with it and represent them in bubbles, and further find out the details or the sub functions these bubbles can be decomposed into. We have to be very careful in designing this DFT because we should make a point that it should not be represented in less than 3 or more than 7 bubbles at one point of time. So till which point we can limit the decomposition? It is never carried on up to basic instruction level. That means if a bubble or a process can be represented using a instruction, then we have to stop its decomposition. For example, in the RMS calculating software, the display 0.4, this 0.4 function display can be any instruction which will display the number, which means printf can be a statement or system.out.println can be an instruction which would display the numbers. So if we reach to that point that we can just use an instruction in order to explain the particular process or represent the particular process, then we can stop its decomposition. But until then we have to go on decomposing till it gives us a clear picture of the entire project. A bubble is not decomposed any further and it can be represented by a simple set of instructions. So this we have already discussed. So that is all from DFT, and we have to make an extra effort in designing the DFT because we have to identify each of the processes and the sub processes separately and then associate the various relations between them. So with this we will move to our next diagram in our next session, which is basically a structure chart, and we should also discuss about data dictionaries. Thank you.